welcome back to another idea, a podcast for... He's coming. He's going to be in a second. A podcast for...
creatives and entrepreneurs, the one to level up their business.
Yes, they do, Igor. Yes, they do.
What up, fam? Hope you're well.
What's happening today?
Today, it's me and you.
It's me and you again.
Again?
Yeah. We are on a little run, aren't we? Today, we're just having a bit of a day where it's just me and you recording.
Mm-hmm.
We've decided just to pause guests just for a month or so.
Yeah.
So we're just having a little break just because kind of our wedding season has kicked in. We've got not another styled shoot happening in July.
Yeah.
The final few tickets, I mean, when this goes out, the tickets could have gone. But if they haven't, there'll only be a few left.
Yeah.
So go and check those out. If
Go and
you
get
are
them, kids.
A photographer, if you want to be a wedding photographer, if you're in the industry and you want to see how we work and approach an entire wedding day, it is the workshop for you.
Yes.
We're very excited about it. We haven't seen it done before, like a kind of a hybrid of like an educational workshop with a styled shoot spread out across a wedding format.
Yeah. And that's what I'm
Quite
really excited
incredible
about.
when you talk about it like that, isn't it? I mean, it really is.
You're surprising yourself, aren't you?
I can't believe we've come up with the idea. It's like, why has this never happened before? So yeah, we're excited. Come and see us in Oxfordshire. Yeah, anything else that you want to mention? Oh, reviews. Let's do another review.
Good shout.
Yeah,
Good
I liked
shout.
that last time.
First of all, thank you to everybody that has dropped reviews for the podcast because... oh, no. I was about to start us on my phone. But yeah. No, thank you so much for dropping the reviews because they mean heaps to us. And I'm just trying to pull them up now. Here we go. So I don't actually know who it is from, but here goes one. I love listening to this podcast every Monday, and I always listen to it halfway through the week too. Oh, Mondays and halfway through the week.
Double listener. Love it.
It is motivational and very inspiring. It is great listening to other people's stories from their business, how they have got to their journey and where they want to go. Just fantastic. Last one. I've listened to most of the episodes. What do you mean most of the episodes? It should be all of them. But yeah, I've listened to most of the episodes to date, and they all bring value in different ways. It's definitely a must listen for any budding creative.
Oh, amen to that. Thank you.
you, Lee
it does mean a
Allison.
lot because we've talked about it before. Like we sit here, we do the podcast, we put it out. We don't necessarily have that kind of that tangible kind of instant feedback from anybody,
Yes.
but the reviews kind of allow us to see that people do listen to it, they do tune in, they do appreciate it. You are taking value from it, and it makes us go, we should do this more, we should keep going. We believe in it, and it's just good to hear that you guys also can recognise that we're doing something that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And hopefully bringing a little bit of light-hearted entertainment to your ears. So today's episode, we thought, because we failed to remember our birthday at the start of May.
Where is he going with this?
We thought we should just have a few episodes where it's just me and you. We just reflect on the past year. So last week's episode was all around the lessons and the things that we have learnt individually and as a collective doing this podcast.
Yeah.
And today's episode is about the standout kind of lessons and moments from the last 12 months of the podcast.
Yes.
In terms of from a guest point of view. Yeah.
And if you are guests that are listening, and if we don't mention you, don't
come after us.
Don't feel like this is a knock on what has been brought by you. No, not at all. It's just there are some obvious episodes to us that
we'll explain why we've chosen them.
were sort of like milestones.
We could have done like a 9-hour episode here, couldn't we? Talking about everybody quite easily, but I don't think we wanted to get into that kind of territory.
No.
So yeah.
So start naming your favourite kids.
Let's go. Yeah. So my favourite child is. Let me just open up my notes. Right. Okay, well, let's just go. I'm going to go in big with the first one that I wrote down.
Yeah.
Which was Christiane of Honeysuckle and Flower Co. Honeysuckle Flower Co. Yeah.
Yes.
And if you didn't listen to that episode, first off, you need to go and listen to that episode. Christiane opened up around the topic of, I suppose, baby loss.
Yeah.
And how that impacted her career, how it was going to a wedding and having to handle clients, having been through that, very recent trauma. And I suppose I kind of put that episode down as being a highlight or standout for me for a couple of reasons. Well, partly because of exactly what Christiane opened up about, which
her
I think
sheer vulnerability.
Yeah, I think for both of us, I don't feel like it caught us off guard on the day, but we also hadn't had a conversation quite like that before.
Mm-hmm.
That just went to a place of
that we just didn't expect.
We didn't expect. And I suppose I wrote it down because of a couple of things. One, it made me recognise afterwards that we were able to provide the conditions and the space for Christiane to be able to open up and to have that conversation in the first place. Mm-hmm. So that made me kind of go, well, that's really good. I'm proud of us for being able to do that, to be able to give her that space, that she felt comfortable to talk about something that is so unbelievably personal, traumatic, and must have been incredibly difficult to talk about. I think we both got a bit choked up.
Yeah, we did.
In front of her. So there was that. There's those two reasons. And then I suppose the third one, and this is really not as important given what we've just talked about, but
it allowed space for it
because it was the first episode where we had adjusted the way in which we record the episodes. We'd invested in a new bit of kit that basically, we won't bore you with the details, but it allowed us to record from the start of the pod to the end of it without having to have 25-minute breaks.
Yeah.
And actually, when you think about the dynamic of that, it allowed us to just have that free-flowing conversation without the fear of, we're about to hit the 25-minute limit, we're going to have to pause and break and then kill the conversation.
We probably did a good 10 to 15 episodes like that, if not more, really.
Yeah, quite possibly more, yeah. Yeah, we did.
And to think about it now, it's just...
Yeah, but again, we talked about this last week in the last episode that we recorded 20 minutes ago. It's like last week. It's gone out last week. We talked about how we just had to start, and you have to, it's very easy to find excuses, aren't there, in a new kind of business or decision that you make. It's got to be perfect. Let's not do anything until it's perfect. But it wasn't perfect from the start. Yeah. We've adapted and added things to it. We've figured things out as we've gone a little bit. And that for me is a prime example of that, is that we recognised that we couldn't carry on stopping after 20-25 minutes, and we needed to find a way to be able to roll through from start to finish. And that just happened. We made a bit of an investment. It cost us a bit of money. We had a few teething issues getting it set up. Big shout out to Mr. Tommy Wright.
Tom Wright.
For helping us with that one, a previous guest. And then I suppose the byproduct of that is that conversation. And I think we both found ourselves after that episode going, would Christiane have talked about that had we had to pause?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she did.
I don't think she would. No. So again, it just allowed a great flow to the conversation. Yeah. And
if you haven't heard that episode, here's a little soundbite.
I think our growth has been, in many ways, much slower than it could have been, and that was held up by, as a result of the TB, I then had fertility problems. So I was trying to have our second baby for quite a long time, and had a few miscarriages along the way. Then Beth was also in the same position, so she had some miscarriages. And running a wedding company, particularly where you're doing a lot of heavy lifting, when you're both trying for babies, is quite hard.
Yeah.
So that was really challenging. And mentally, I think we were both feeling that we wanted to be able to put our families first. We also wanted to be able to put the business first.
Yeah.
And so there was a real kind of tug of war going on for both of us of how much we could give. And we have for a long time now been having to turn work away, and perhaps not taken opportunities that we might otherwise have taken, just because there was that massive challenge. And then, I did fall pregnant. But that pregnancy was, I won't bore you with the entire story, but it was a real challenge because I was in an awful lot of pain.
Yeah.
And something was very clearly wrong. But I went down to the hospital and they scanned me, and they were like, nothing is wrong, everything's fine.
Even with all the complications beforehand,
Even
still.
all the complications beforehand,
and your body telling you that something's
something was terribly wrong. So I then collapsed, and I was like, I had to go to hospital quite quickly. But I'd basically had an ectopic pregnancy, which they'd 100% told me it wasn't when they scanned me. It's when the pregnancy begins in a fallopian tube instead of in the womb. And obviously it can't grow there because it's tiny. So as it grows, there's a risk of it rupturing. And if it ruptures, you can die because you just internally bleed, which is what happened. And so, but because the brain's an amazing thing, because everyone kept telling me there's nothing wrong with you, I was walking around with this thing. So it had ruptured. And I was walking around in terrible pain, like, oh, I'm such a hypochondriac. I really need to pull myself together because there's nothing wrong with me. I actually walked myself up to the hospital, and I was like, I just want to check again because I'm like crying with pain here. And the moment I collapsed, I think, is the moment when it had ruptured. Even then, my husband called a paramedic, and I, I guess as a result of what I was going through, was having a panic attack, which I'd never had before, so I didn't understand. We both thought I was having a stroke. And the paramedic arrived and diagnosed what she could see, which was a panic attack. So she then went away. So there was all these kind of mistakes, one after the other, bang, bang, bang. And I walked myself up to the hospital, and I was like, I really just need to check because I'm in such pain that each footstep was hurting. So I feel like something's wrong. And I know you guys have scanned several times. Lots of people have looked at me and everyone's saying that nothing is wrong. And they were, the lady who saw me that
sound
day.
like being terribly nice about it. Well, excuse me, please, could you just, actually you had every right to almost be kicking off and going.
I think that's half my problem, and not sort of advocating for myself and not being able to say, you guys are wrong, because I felt they must know what they were talking about. You trust medical professionals generally that they know what they're talking about. But it was an ectopic pregnancy, and it had ruptured, and I'd been internally bleeding for several days, and they said, we've got to have an operation right now. And I was like, can we wait for my husband? He's an hour away. And they were like, no, you've got to go in right now. And then I went in, and that when I woke up from that, I knew that, number one, I couldn't have any more babies naturally, and that I'd lost my baby, and we'd already spent several years trying, and that was a real low moment. But it was also the fact that, as you pointed out, I'd kind of not fought any of it, and I felt for a long time a real terror and fear about anything like that happening again, because with both the TB and with the ectopic, things had been misdiagnosed, mistakes had been made, and I had not fought or stood up for myself at all. And so after that happened, I then had sort of PTSD symptoms for a few years, and that was a really intense time because I sort of went into a bit of denial over what had happened. And so I'd go to a wedding, and I'd be driving there in the van, and I'd just start sobbing, or just this stuff would come back, and I'd just be sobbing, and then I'd get to the venue, I'd be like, right, makeup, hello, here are your flowers, just completely blocking all of that stuff out. And
so hard.
it was a very intense time.
I get it, but it's
I think it's hard. It's very hard for me and you to relate to that. But we will have gone to weddings where things are difficult. I mean, they're not even comparable. No, they're not comparable. Exactly. So I'm being very careful here with what I say. What you've been through is incredibly traumatic, and I'm not surprised you had PTSD.
Yeah.
Fair play to you for battling through and going and doing your job like that, because I think I think it would break a lot of other people.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would be able to relate to it.
Yeah, I think so. And it's probably something that's way more common than we could even begin to imagine.
I really think it is, and it's part of the reason that I'm happy to talk about it, actually, is because I do think there are a lot of women in the wedding industry around this age who are starting or continuing building their families, and I think it is really, really common, and not enough people talk about how that affects your work.
Yeah.
Particularly, I think, with weddings, because everything's booked so far in advance. So you're trying not to overbook yourself in case you fall pregnant, in case you have a baby, then you have a miscarriage, then you could have done that work, but you haven't done it. And there's all those kind of emotions wrapped around that. And it felt like for a long time, for both me and for Beth, who also was having fertility problems of her own, we were sort of holding our breath a bit and not
it's hard enough,
diving
it's
in.
hard enough planning it when you haven't got fertility problems, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then you throw that into the mix as well. It's an almost impossible situation to be in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have got absolutely no doubt there'll be a lot of people listening to this that will be like, thank you for addressing it, and just bringing it up and kind of normalising it a little bit.
Yeah.
'Cause it's a very difficult subject.
Yeah.
You know, it made me think of like when Gemma gave birth to Buddy. Like 2 days later, I was off to France.
Oh gosh.
And it's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah,
but I'm like, okay, well,
it is.
I'm physically fine. I haven't got to deal with.
Yeah.
I've just got to go and do my job. But to be the person like who's carrying the baby, and to then have the pressure of delivering a product or a service to an industry that's everyone's having a great time.
That's that's the one that really got me when you were explaining everything. Yeah.
Feelings, isn't it?
You very much having to almost like, I don't know, switch off or I don't know how to say it really, but
how did you
yeah.
Going back to the, you know, getting there to the
Yeah.
wedding and
Here I am.
putting
Yeah,
your makeup on, like,
yeah. Well, I think I was well practiced at it because I had to do it with my son as well. It was the same thing, you know. I'd finish the wedding and then I'd get in the van, cry all the way home, get back to nursery to pick him up.
Yeah.
Hello, how was your day?
Yeah.
You know, and you put it on for a lot of people, and actually, although I talk about it quite openly now, whilst I was in it, I really didn't speak about it. I almost kind of lost some friendships through just, you know, lots of people around me were having their second or even third children, and I still didn't have mine. And that was a really, really odd side to it, was that I began to get jealous. And I'm not a jealous person. I never really covet other people's cars or watches or anything. I've never had that as a facet to my personality. And it's an ugly emotion. It's a horrible thing to feel jealousy. But I felt really jealous of all the people around me whose families were just naturally growing, and also jealousy of people who were able to just push their business because they had no other, there was nothing else going on. The only agenda was their business. And I could see people, you know, flying. And I felt like I can't do that and I can't do this. And so I was really stuck. It was a really, really stuck place to be. And Beth was in the same position.
Christiane there, incredible. Really still gets me listening to that now.
Yeah, she's incredible.
Next up, who you got?
I was going to say, and in fact, we're going to team up with her for the Not Another Style shoot.
We are, yeah.
So
coming on board.
Yeah. If you want to meet a celebrity, there you go.
Yeah.
Next up,
the Springles.
The Springles were amazing. I've wanted to meet them for a long time, really, because they just seem great people behind their business, but at the same time, what they have been able to build through Able Burners, it's just incredible, really. Talking about pivoting during a pandemic, so yeah, it's absolutely incredible. So this episode, is one that, again, if you haven't listened, go back to it, because there's so much motivational encouragement.
I mean, it was a 2-hour episode.
Yeah.
It was one of those that we could have taken away. We could have sliced it up countless ways and probably done like 20, 30 sound bites out of it. But we chose this one to give you guys.
We live in farmland, so we see the farmers turning the fields around, and every day as I'd be driving, I'm like, oh, he's sown clover now to put the nitrates back in the soil, and oh, the sheep are back in now, and you can see the farmer like using and resting the land, and I was like, that's how business is. You can't always be going. So when those times are, like when you have quieter times in business, how can you now sow into the future? What crop could you put in now that can be doing well? Like the farmer can't sell us the clover to eat. It's purely to regenerate the soil. And so like, yeah, it's a bit of like a game, but I think also business is a bit of an analogy for life, isn't it? Because it does change and flex and bend, and it's never reliable. And I think people sometimes think that business is this very logical thing, and I don't think either of us see it that way. It's like a creative, dynamic, moving thing, just like a field or your family life. Or
that's incredible.
That's an incredible analogy. Shame on you for thinking that was a weird analogy.
It's such a great analogy.
Yeah.
Such a great analogy. And yeah, it just places great importance in rest as well. And
yeah, which doesn't get talked about enough, does it?
yeah.
You know, we all talk about the drive, the go, get on with it, do
Yeah.
it. You can go after it, you know, which is all very positive and on the front foot. But sometimes, you know, as a creative, you need to breathe and rest and pause, which is kind of what we're doing here with the podcast for the next couple of weeks,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it's
We're just
true.
taking a little bit of a pause, just temporarily.
Yep.
We hope that you all start shouting, "Come back, guys! We want you," because then we'll go, "Yeah, we do need to carry it on." But yeah, no, I thought it was an incredible point, and there were so many in that episode that, again, if you want to go and listen to an episode, like if you really resonated with what Kat talked about there, just go and listen to the whole episode, because it's absolutely packed. That was just one little outtake. You know, there are dozens of outtakes from that episode, and again, just having like the dynamic of us as well, being able to hold that conversation. That was a 2-hour conversation that we had with two guests as well, so there were 4 of us.
Yeah.
And that certainly shifted the dynamics of the conversation and being able for us to be able to read the space and to know when to step in and when not, when to let them, you know.
Yeah. Yeah,
respond.
it was a learning curve. It really was a learning curve. But at the same time, I think that
Good
we
episode.
did a great job.
Yeah, we do good. We do good. Next up, we're going Grace Andrews.
Grace Andrews. I think this is my favourite episode.
Your favourite child.
Can I say that?
Yeah, you
I
can say your favourite child, yeah.
Yes, I think this is my favourite episode. Simply because Grace, she's got such an infectious character in terms of go-get mentality, and she's just making it happen, really. It's really, really good. And what I got mostly from the episode was, I keep saying it, but her and Stevens is just sheer obsession about what they do and how they do it. And yeah, I want that for myself. And yes.
Yeah, it's infectious.
Yeah, it really, really is. And this clip that we've got next up is a treat, so listen up.
You can be fine at something or you can be great, and the only way you can be great is if you're just trying new things and you're getting there and you're failing faster than everyone else. Like, that's our culture, like fail faster than everyone else, because you make 100 mistakes, there's going to be one thing in there that works well and it's going to send you on a new trajectory and it's going to move the needle a little bit. And that's all we're thinking about. Like, every day, it's not about getting to 10 million YouTube subscribers. Like, that will be the result of us every single day zooming in and looking at how we can just alter the trajectory, just alter the line, like by 1 degree every day. Like, I mean, you've seen all those diagrams before. It's incredible what you can do if you just really, really think about diving deep in and just seeing how you can twist and turn and twist and turn. And a fail-safe environment. Like, we're so lucky to work in an environment where it's encouraged. We're literally encouraged to fail. We'd rather see a list of 10 things you failed in this week than one great thing you do in a month. Like, for sure. And then you need to find your why, because a lot of people, they post about their what, this podcast, that's your thing. But your why is because you want to connect with creators and entrepreneurs and bridge that gap in the creativity world. So that's the stuff you need to be talking about online. People buy into your why, they don't buy into your what. And if you're an energy drink brand, what is the energy drink? But you post that all over social media, no one cares. It looks like an ad. I couldn't care less. I need to connect with your why. And their why is they want to energize the nation. And suddenly you go, we want to energize the nation. Cool, we'll do a content series on XYZ. You're not going to mention the product because you just happen to sell the product. But people buy into the why, and people buy from people. So they need to connect your values and their missions. People think they're doing a great job, and then you go onto their feed and it's just full of their product, and then they're wondering why they're not converting. You need to connect people and build that community from the ground up, so that when you have this product that goes on sale, they choose your brand over the other one because they feel so aligned and connected to your values, and they feel like they're part of a community, and there's a sense of belonging there, and there's a sense of loyalty and brand loyalty. So I think that's what I would suggest. I think people get so caught up in the what, because obviously they want to sell and it's really important that they create something that monetizes, but that is a byproduct, and you're stunting your growth if you're just showing them the what. You need to tell them the why. And I could talk about that for days. The next 3 months are going to be the craziest, steepest learning curve probably of your life. He was like, have you been to uni? I was like, yeah. He was like, have you been to this? Yeah. That's all out the window. Like, we're starting from scratch and this is going to be the steepest learning curve of your life. couldn't be more right. Those first 3 months, I was literally, me and Steve were sat next to each other day in, day out. Wherever we traveled to in the world, he was doing talks here, there, and everywhere. From day one, he goes, we've just got to start posting content. And I was like, you've got 1.2 million followers on Instagram. Am I just going to start posting content? And he went, well, if you don't start posting today, then you're not going to start posting tomorrow. And then you're going to build up this fear. So you need to start posting. And as soon as you post, I'll give you feedback. And it was as live and it was as real as that. And it was crazy fast.
Yeah, it's infectious, but she also, you can be really infectious and not know what you're doing. and Grace isn't that. She's infectious, but she also backs it up with the knowledge, the skill, the ability, all of those things that, without, and again, you can have all of that but not have the infection or the drive, and it falls apart. You have to bring all of those facets to the table, I think,
together, and she does that so well.
Yeah, it was a really inspiring episode, and I suppose as well from our point of view, it was a real kind of moment of reflection to kind of say to ourselves, look at what we've done here. We've brought somebody on that works for the largest podcast in Europe, and she came on board because she saw what we were doing.
You're welcome, kids.
Yeah,
You're
don't
welcome.
worry about it, guys. Again, the least you can do is review it. But she came on board because she liked what we were doing. She could see the potential in it. If we'd have reached out to her from day one and said, "Oh, we're thinking of doing," again, so many people do this, don't they? They go, "Oh, we're thinking of doing this. Would you come on board?" And sometimes you've got to show people that you've already built something.
Yeah.
And that it takes a bit of time. You don't just get there and land on it. But for Grace to come on board with us and to give us her time and to share her story, and then to finish it and be very positive about that experience, and to give us kind of really positive words of encouragement afterwards, was for us a kind of a real, God, yeah, a little pat on the back, wasn't it?
Yes.
And we needed that.
Yeah.
So that was great.
Yeah.
My tablet has died, so
no worries. Next
I
step.
do have a picture of the next one.
I'm not sure whether we're going to play a clip or not. You correct me otherwise, but we wanted to mention as well the sort of episodes that we've had that were just jam-packed with actionable information.
Yes. Yeah.
We are super proud of the fact that, yes, we bring guests that can give you sort of like motivational and inspirational sort of content, but at the same time, we've got these episodes that are very, very, this is how you do this, and just go and do it. So
the two that stood out were SEO and Pinterest, weren't they? They were
Yes.
both incredible, and both of those guys that came on were just full of knowledge. And do you know what really amazed me? It's just how open and honest they both were.
Yeah.
Like, not afraid to share anything. We asked them every question we could ask them.
Yeah.
They could have been here for 5 hours and we'd have still been going. But yeah, we really, really appreciate them coming on and about those two subjects.
I still remember the headache that I had after finishing that episode with Rachel.
On Pinterest.
Yes, on Pinterest. Yeah. It is a great episode. So yeah, just go and get it, kids.
Yeah. And then the next one we wanted to talk about was a very, very recent episode, actually, with Ryan and Lee. And I suppose, again, a little bit like Christiane. Partly, where am I going with this? Because it's such a recent episode, I haven't had the chance really to fully digest how big this was. Mm-hmm. But when I listened to it, actually I only listened to it yesterday, it really, I had it on YouTube whilst I was editing, and it just completely pulled me in. And even though we were there, we were sat there recording it, it still made me stop what I was doing and listen to. And I listened to Lee talk about his sobriety journey over the last 13 months. And I was just transfixed for like 10 minutes, just listening to him talk and explain the journey that he's been on. And I found it really inspiring. I just had this huge level of respect for Lee for being so open and honest with that conversation, which again is quite a difficult personal subject to approach.
But it just shows the importance as well of really taking care of your health in order to just run your business.
Yeah. I think that is a big takeaway, isn't it?
Because if you can't take care of yourself, that's it.
Yeah.
Especially us that are self-employed. If self is not there, that's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is no business.
Here's that clip of Lee for you.
I've always enjoyed going out, and I've got a very, you've probably gathered, I've got a big all or nothing personality, and that comes with everything in life, literally everything there is. And alcohol was a big part of the all or nothing, and nothing was ever enough. So I was, because I played football, I've never drank in the house. That's never been a thing. I've never drank every day. That's never been a thing. I could go 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks without a drink. But as soon as I went out, going home at 3 o'clock wasn't enough. Going home at 7 o'clock wasn't enough. Doing the full day the next day wasn't enough. Doing that night wasn't enough. So all of a sudden, my nights out would become a Friday, Saturday into Sunday. And the decisions I was making during those 2-3 days were, you would never ever make those decisions sober. I won't delve too much into them, but you would never do it, and you would then become embarrassed about what you've just done, which means that you've done wrong. If you don't want to shout from the rooftops about it, you mean you've done something wrong. And that was just happening more and more. And then the past 3 years has not been a good 3 years since COVID. And when Classified was born, I kind of moved all my PT clients across to the young lad that was working for me, who was supposed to buy into the business. His words were, well, they train with me now, so why would I give you money? And that was gone. And then I found myself then, when everywhere opened back up, being invited to, right, we're at the opening of the Ivy tonight, Lee. Perfect. I'd know everyone. I'd get invited everywhere. So I wasn't looking at that as going to the Ivy and enjoying myself for a few hours. I was looking at that and going escaping what was going on for 15 hours. So everyone else would go home at 1 o'clock. I know loads of people in there, so I would stay out till 5 o'clock with them, 6 o'clock with them, 7 o'clock with them. Everyone else getting up for work the next day. I was just an absolute mess, because them problems that I was hiding from have not gone anywhere. They've if anything, they've gone worse. You
starting your week as well in that.
You're starting your week in a terrible
awful state.
You're putting you're the driver at the back. You're just about to start a Formula One race, and you're you've put yourself in. But I've put myself there. That was the thing. So then a week could go by. I'd get back on my feet. I'd be back in the gym. I'd be working, and then it would be coming out tonight. We've got such a thing on, and I'd be like, well, fucking yeah, dead right I am, because I'm in a shitstorm at the moment, and I want to forget about it. So I'd go out, and then the 3 days again, and I'd bring Ryan in a mess and blah blah blah.
So what was the turning point for that?
The turning point
was it like a really clear defining moment where you were like, this can't.
Yeah. So a few things had happened, not last year, the year before. One of which I started actually seeing a girl that I really liked, which is very rare for me because of how fussy I am. And she'd kind of work weekends, and she'd come over on the Sunday morning, and I'd be hungover and wouldn't do anything. Me at that time was like, I'm going out. I'm a single. You're working, and looking now, it wasn't the right thing to be doing. I finished that because I had so much going on. Probably wouldn't have finished it if I wasn't going out every other weekend, and so on and so on. And then I was in a really dark place for 6 months, but I'd go out into where I lived, and I'd bump into everybody. I'd be like, you all right, you good? And be a completely different person behind a closed door. And then it got towards the end of the year, and I was like, I'm done with drinking. Like, I don't want to go out. And then it came to New Year's Eve, and a few friends were like, we're going to London. Anyway, pushed it too far that night. A few things had happened, and then I then got back on the train after not going to sleep. I met friends on the train. I got showered and went straight back out, another 18 hours again. Long story short, I'd spent the last £300 in my bank account. I'd ended up with nothing. I'd started the 2nd of Jan, because the 1st of Jan I was having a ball because I was still out. 2nd of Jan, I had in this big beautiful house in Wilmslow. Couldn't pay for it. Couldn't pay for my Range Rover on the drive. An incident had occurred in London, and I was like, I rang Ryan up and said, I'm done. I'm like, I'm coming away from it. I've tried to control my drinking for the last 10 years. I will come out just for a few hours tonight. 20 hours later, everyone else is cracking on with their day. I'm still getting in. So I've tried to do that for years and years, and it suddenly hit me that this all or nothing mentality, the alcohol had to be the nothing side of things instead of the all.
Yeah.
So I spoke to Ryan, spoke to a couple of mates, and they were like, look, you've just had a bad experience. You've had a bad 3 years. You
remember
just...
that chat?
Well, I've had a million of these chats
Right.
with him. Because I would see, I know the real like him. And like we'd be sat in a cafe and he'd be close to tears, like filling up and whatnot. And the minute someone walked in who he knew, boom, this, "Are you all right? Yeah, good, mate, you." And you're like, it's not sustainable. It's just not sustainable to like, you know, they're coming in thinking, Lee, what a happy guy, what a thingy. And in reality, he was really, really struggling. There's when he was going out, you know, I'd rarely go out because I've got a family and stuff. But I would, you know, I'd go out now and again, and I would get swept up in it as well. I'd get in at 6 a.m, get a right bollocking off page. But I like that 6 a.m. was my cut off, which sounds ridiculous, but like I would go home and he would carry on for days on end. And we were in the car one time towards the end of his drinking, where I said, "Mate, you can't go out this weekend. Like, you're skint. Like, how are you going to afford it?" Because he, as you know, he'll be the first to admit, he weren't spending 20 quid. You know, he was spending sizable amounts of money. And I said, "Well, this is minimum 200 quid this night out that you're going to go on this weekend." And he was like, "I'm already in the shit. What's another 200 quid going to do?" And like, for like, he'll relay that back to me now, won't you? And go,
The mental way of looking at things.
What the hell was I thinking? That's 200 quid I didn't, I had that I could have
to give away to.
Yeah. But like the change in him is just
That was going to be my next question. Was like how.
oh, like night and day.
So I was adamant then that I was done with it, and I was never returning to it. And people were like, "Look, just have a couple of months off. You'll be all right. You've just had a bad few years. You've had a bad December. You've been out a lot. Your head's up your ass." And I was like, "I'm done. Like this is me done." And they were like, "You've got such a thing on in February. Will it be difficult?" And I was like, "No, because I don't drink no more." So that's how adamant I was. And I don't actually, when you actually strip it down, I'm the most confident person who loves dicking about all the day anyway. I don't actually need it. Like, what do I need it for? So I started to go out for meals and then go to bars and stuff and just still have an absolute ball just on water. So I was like, I don't even need it anyway. And then you do have your moments where you're like, do you know what? Getting out of the house at midday with the lads, having a full day and night, look like ahead of you, you know, you're dressed up, you're looking good, you're smelling great, a single lad, so you're chatting with people. Like, you do have them days where you're like, I'd love to do that again, but the consequences of that, I would never ever put myself through it again. I just wouldn't do it. And I'm at a stage now where today's day 415. I'm over 13 months into it now.
Well,
and thank you.
Don't play it down. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's really.
It's like, and it's I think it's a high-end achievement just because of the person he was and the lifestyle that, you know, he's given up something that he genuinely enjoys doing, which is the social aspect of stuff. And like now, although, you know, there's there's stresses in life, there's other things that get you down and whatnot, but now he's in a position where he's not in a terrible state on Monday, where he then has to like build himself back up. He's up every morning. He's at the gym. He eats well. He's found like new things in going on a walk and stuff, and that is.
A lot of problems don't go away, but you just deal with them a lot better. My alarm goes off at 4:30 every day, and I don't wake up tired. Like, that's just my life for the past year. You go that long without alcohol in your system, that is just killing everything. That you've got this new lease of life. And like I say, I could go 6, 7, 8 weeks without a drop. I wasn't an alcoholic, but when I went, I would be. Yeah. And then the aftermath of that. So I've gone 3 days, 2.5 days of being out, and then it took you a week to get over that. And now I don't have any of that. I'm 7 days a week. I'm myself. I'm bouncing about 7 days a week. I'm present.
You're starting your Monday at the front of the grid now.
Yeah. I'm present 7 days. Yeah, exactly that. I'm present 7 days a week. I'm not missing it. And someone once said, do you not feel like you're missing out now? And I'm gaining. I'm gaining days. I'm gaining hours. I'm gaining family time. I'm gaining time with my friends. I'm like, I've gone from maybe having Friday, Saturday, Sunday and going out and then being an absolute nightmare for a week because my head's up my arse, to I could have an event now Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and I make all three of them. I go to all three, but I'm still up at 6 o'clock the next day and going to the gym, and so I've gained. I'm gaining so much.
Your output just maximizes so much more. Isn't it?
I'm like 7 days a week. I'm present to work. Someone messages me at 11:30 on a Sunday night. Can you get hold of S Club 7 tickets? Through the concierge business. But because, S Club 7, I'm not a massive fan, by the way, although they did sing some bangers. But they've just announced a tour. So that is actually, I'm getting loads of messages at the moment. That's why S Club 7 coming to me. But and I'm responding at 11:30 at night on a Sunday instead of going, I'll get back to that. So I've just gained so much more time. And one thing I've opened up to 3,000 and odd followers on my Instagram. It's not a big following, but the response I've had of people wanting to talk to me. I had a girl who I used to train. She's 50 days yesterday or the day before, and she reports into me. She's like, Lee, I feel so good. I'm doing this and doing that. And all these people are reaching out to me and I'm helping them. But one thing I've never done is I've never preached that what you've just said, you don't need to come away from alcohol. You don't need to. Like, you're under control. You like a few drinks and you'll go home and it won't affect anything. Ryan doesn't need to come away from it. I needed to come away from it because it was affecting so much more. The stupid things I was doing would have affected, if something would have happened to me, if I'd have been killed, like, and these are scenarios that could have happened. If I'd have been killed or I could have killed somebody else, that's not only my life ruined, that's Ryan's life ruined, that's my mate Callum's life ruined, that's my mum and dad's life ruined, that's my sister's. Yeah. And that is enough now for me to go, I'm never touching the stuff again.
Yeah.
And from a business partner's perspective, you have to you have to peel those people off the floor when their head's in the bin after a 3-day bender. You're like, oh God, please don't be rough. Please don't be rough. Whereas now, never have to worry about that. You're just like, okay, well, I know that Lee's going to be up at
the confidence is there, isn't it now?
Yeah.
And I'm a better person for a future relationship. Like, no girl wants me to say I'm going out for an hour and disappear for 2 days and not spend with her, and if I'm ever lucky enough to have a family. So it's benefiting things that haven't even happened yet. Do you know what I mean? So it for me personally, it has brought so much to my life, massively, and I love it. I mean, it's an addiction. That's the crazy thing. Not drinking is an addiction, just as it is the other way.
The other side.
Those 200 quid benders are a thing of the past.
That was a good night.
That was
the monetary side.
I'd do 500 quid on a night out because my problem was as well, I could drink.
Yeah.
So you could see me now and then you could see me in 15 hours and I won't be much different.
And he also doesn't go to your student unions either.
No, I can imagine he likes the finer things in life.
Yeah, so I was spending an
exactly
absolute...
how you imagine.
Spending an absolute fortune. But yeah, for me personally, it's I wish I had a bigger audience because I never thought I would be speaking like this about it because I've always been a very closed book with issues. Yeah. And Ryan said a few
I wouldn't even say this from like a patronising point of view, but it is really admirable.
Thank you.
Like, it's really admirable that you that you've done it for starters.
Yeah.
But then you're able to just come on a podcast and just tell people. I mean, no one watches this anyway, so you're fine. But like,
they will do when they see this face on it. But they were like, Lee, can you come on again next week?
Someone will be like, have you seen the numbers? Have you seen the numbers?
Yeah.
It's Lee's face.
Yeah,
Lee's
we've got
face.
1,000 new listeners in Algeria.
And 998 of them are women.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Blonde.
But the thing is I never realised how big it was what I was doing. I was 2 months in and people are going, that is amazing. And I'm like, that is mental to hear. 2 months without alcohol is nothing. Is that how the UK is now? It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Like that we can't go longer than 2 months without a drop of alcohol. I was looking at that, I was like, that isn't a big thing. 3 months, and then people were talking to me and breaking down to me, I've got to come away from it, Lee. Like, can you help me? I've got to come away from it. They'd be like, Lee, I've done 3 weeks.
You won't have been the only one. Like,
No.
you've been going out with people that are probably masking that same problem and doing exactly the same thing as you.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, because it is mental. Alcohol is the only drug that people can sort of like come away from it, and someone will question you, why you're not drinking. It's not as if you're not taking paracetamol, and I would question why you're not taking paracetamol. It's
we went
crazy.
out for a sober night out the other week. We went for some nice food. We both drove into Manchester, went for some nice food. We then went, should we go lively bar now? See
it
what?
was me pushing it because I still love that environment.
I don't. So I'm if I'm in bed for half 10, next door revs the Cuba. So we were going to go in Albert Schloss, but the queue was round the door, so we were like, we won't go there. But yeah, I can if I'm in bed at half 10, I'm a very happy man. That is where I'm at with my life. But so we were like, right, let's go here. We'll get a few Diet Cokes and we'll see what it's like. Have a laugh.
We've never needed alcohol to have a laugh anyway.
So we get in there, we're having a drink. It's pretty rammed, but then when you're sober in that environment, and you're both sober, so it's not as if he's drunk or I'm drunk.
Notice everything.
You're like, God, there's this like woman on the dance floor giving it like in our own world, and then you see like lads who we all done it, arms around each other,
spilling the drink everywhere.
And then what we noticed was whenever anyone walked into the bar, they'd walk in and then they'd open the door. As soon as they open the door, they go, they just start dancing the way to the bar. And we're like, this is mental, isn't it, when you're sober?
I always remember like in my sort of late teens, early 20s, like having a kind of group of friends at the time that just like all did drugs. And I was the only one out of probably 12 people that never did. And I think it comes down to just those early times of like just seeing a few people doing it and going, I don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
You do, and it's going back to what I was saying was realizing how big it is. I'd have a sit down with someone who was the fucking world was upside down. I've got to come away from it, Lee. Can you help me? 3 weeks in, they'd be like, Lee, I feel amazing. 4 weeks in, and then the 5th week, you're on Instagram and they're out boozing and they've lasted 5 weeks, and then it's not until you see that more and more that you realize how big it is. One of the lads who knows me quite well, I saw him the 7th of January, and it was in a bar in the daytime, and I was out having breakfast for a meeting, and I was like, I'm done with drinking, I'll never touch it again. He was like, I'll have you a £500 bet, and we shook on it in front of a load of lads. And I bumped into him the other week, and he was like, I owe you 500 quid, don't I? I was like, no, you don't, just forget about it. But just to know that, like, that's what I have done. And you do, I speak to so many people who want to come away from it and they cannot do it. I wish I had 2 million followers on Instagram that I could help go through it. That is anyone's like me.
You probably wish you did it 5 years before as well, didn't you? But
exactly.
What it is, isn't it?
Do you know what? This is the right timing for me now. I've had some unbelievable times. I've done Las Vegas 12 times, and I've had the best time of my life out there. And
12 times. It's ridiculous.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've done it twice, and I will never return on that type of holiday.
So I've had the most amazing times, but this is the right time for me.
Yeah.
And
like, just to bring it full circle to what we've been talking about before we got onto that, is like the benefit of your decision now on your business. Like, really, Class Brand wouldn't have done what it's done recently.
It wouldn't be a thing.
Had it probably wouldn't.
It wouldn't be a thing, because the last 12 months, Ryan's not had all the time to do what I've done on it. I've had to pull back, so it wouldn't be a thing. I've had to pull back on other stuff to work on it, so it wouldn't be a thing, would it? It would have been let's pick that up, and then 2 months later it was like, where are you up to with them? Like, I'll chase it up next week. With the zero alcohol, the Class Brand wouldn't be the product it is now.
Yeah,
it wouldn't.
Running 2 startups means that, you know, you have to divvy it out, and you have to, one has to be a driving force for a certain amount of time on it, and then vice versa. So, you know, when building the product and when, you know, bringing that to life, that is all Lee's stuff anyway. When you want to get to the technical bit, and when we need terms and conditions, you know, making and websites doing and you know, coming up with like a business strategy, and
again, that's why it worked with both the app and the. We was like, look, Ryan's taking the massive lead on the app here, but when I'm needed, I'm there. And then with the clothing brand, I've took the massive lead, and it's got to the bits where what I physically can't get my head around doing. Ryan has stepped in, and now that's why it's the perfect little jigsaw. But yeah, I wouldn't be here now on it, like, if I was still going out, and I don't know what kind of mess I would have been in, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think he would have been here if he would have kept drinking.
As in the podcast, not here. As in,
well, you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know, do you? But no,
Yeah.
you
No,
wouldn't.
no,
Well,
like
no.
No, I know.
I mean, the
I know.
stupid decisions I was making, anything could have happened.
Yeah.
So, but look, I've got a grip on things, and I've decided to do. Like I said, I would never preach, but for me, I had to come away from alcohol, and I've made that decision. And I think my life from last year forwards now will massively benefit from that decision, and I feel quite strong about that.
What a guy.
Absolute legend. Just to be so honest and open with us, I think is just incredible, and I think there'll be a lot of people that take a lot from that. You know, even if you don't have a problem with alcohol, I think just having that level of awareness of how it can impact you, and making those choices. You know, we talked about it in the last episode, didn't we, about micro decisions that you make day to day. Like for me, the standout bit of that was Lee talking about going into a Monday now, like full of zip and life and drive, rather than going into the start of the week, basically at the back of the grid. So yeah, really powerful episode, and we really, really appreciate Lee.
Yeah. The next one, it's by the amazing Hannah B.
Yep.
She, again, we've had great guests.
I mean, it was hard picking these, to be honest. I mean, like I said at the start, we could do 3 or 4 episodes like this where we pick out some standout moments.
Exactly.
And if you are listening to us for the first time, if you're just discovering this podcast now, you have got some absolute gems to work through.
Yeah, you've got homework to do, kids.
Yeah, you need to crack on. But Hannah B,
she was absolutely incredible. Again, just super infectious with her character. But what really, really stood out for me was the fact that because she was so passionate about her niche, what she is doing, it just meant that she can literally create a business out of anything. That's the sort of like idea that I got from it. If you're really passionate about something, just go and do it and try and make a business out of it, because you can do it.
Yeah, let's give them the clip and then we can discuss.
Okay. I've been told. Clip.
I do have an image of the moment my daughter was born. My husband just shoved my camera into the midwife's hands, and she was like, "What do I do?"
It's on back button focus.
My daughter was born, and I just burst out into laughter, like absolute manic laughter, and it was amazing. And I love the fact that she was born into laughter, and that image is just that. You know, the following weeks after I gave birth to my daughter, I suffered really badly with postnatal depression, but that image, I framed it and I put it right next to my front door, so every time I came home or I left or I was struggling to leave the house and I was sort of standing at the door deciding whether or not to cancel plans because I couldn't physically bring myself to go out, I would look at that picture and think, I can do hard things because I've done hard things. And that moment for me it's been really imperative in the way that I take pictures for other people's births, to give them that image of, holy crap, I'm amazing, I can do this, I've done hard things and that was a hard thing, and I can do more hard things, and I can live my life knowing that I accomplished this incredible thing.
There's an image. But it is, isn't it? I think, you said it exactly like this, that there are so many businesses out there that you can go and pursue. And even within types of business, there are niches and sub niches and sub niches that are just. But again, if you really go after it and you're really, I think what's really important is that you really care and you're passionate about that niche or industry that you're going to move into. And I think the reason that you chose Hannah was really a prime example of that, of going into an industry and a niche of photography that is quite uncommon, really, but absolutely smashing it.
Yeah.
And doing really well and making a real name for herself as being like the go-to in that industry.
Yeah.
I just think is remarkable. So those are our kind of standout clips from the past year. Again, if you were to sit us down tomorrow and ask us for our favourite clips, we would probably pick 6 very different clips. But these were just the ones that, when we put ourselves on the spot, we thought of. I'd really like to know what your favourite clips were.
Great question.
So if you just want to go to our Instagram feed, you'll see on our reels we've got so many little outtakes and sort of moments from the past 12 months. I just want people to share one to their stories and just say, this has been my standout moment. This has been my kind of favourite child guest.
Yeah.
I'm just intrigued to see which ones you connected with and which ones you took either value or entertainment or inspiration from.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I like that.
So yeah, I think people need to do that. And then they can go and leave us a review.
Yes.
Right.
This is it, kids.
Thanks, guys. It's been, I know we've kind of mentioned it a little bit. We've kind of just been going just over a year, but we've thoroughly enjoyed it so far. I know we've talked about taking just a little pause at the moment. It might mean that we have a couple of weeks off soon, but we do have plans to come back. We are
bigger and better.
Yeah, we've got some really big ideas for the next sort of 12 months, and yeah, we're looking forward to more conversations with more creatives, more individuals in business, and sharing those stories and journeys with you guys at home, in the studio, in your office, wherever you might be, walking the dog, wherever. Yeah, I'll stop talking now because Igor's looking at me funny. So
he loves a good waffle, doesn't he?
Just going to drag it out.
All right.
See you soon, guys.
Bye.